I waited by the phone all night, falling asleep to her scent on my pillow, while she gave herself to someone else.
You believe you're creating something special, something that matters, and in an instant, you find yourself trapped in a nightmare you never saw coming. What started as a heartfelt idea to unexpectedly visit my children in Boston for the weekend turned into a catastrophic experience that shattered everything I knew. A single hotel stay, one wrong move. Nearly 2 decades of marriage on the verge of collapse. People claim what happens behind hotel doors stays there, but certain truths have a way of clawing back to the surface no matter how far you try to bury them. My name's Michael Anderson. I'm 50 years old. To most, I'm just a regular husband and father, married to Rebecca for close to 20 years. We've got 2 kids, Curtis, our teenage boy who's shooting up like bamboo, and Sophie, our little girl, 10 years old, who still looks at me like I'm some kind of hero. That Wednesday kicked off just like any typical day when Becca's away. I was scrambling to get breakfast together. Sophie was barely touching her bowl. Curtis was zoned out on his phone, and I was chugging coffee like it was keeping me alive. Becca was halfway through a 7-day work stint in Boston, longer than her usual gigs, and the absence was wearing on all of us. I love my wife deeply. So when she'd been away for a few days, it struck me, why not turn the distance into something special? The thought came out of nowhere as I watched Sophie mindlessly swirl her spoon through her breakfast. What if we flew out and paid Mom a surprise visit this weekend? I said, setting my mug aside. Sophie's eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. Are you serious? Just show up out of nowhere? Absolutely, I said, feeling the spark catch. We grabbed tickets today, and by tomorrow night we're at her hotel, completely unexpected. She'd be blown away. Curtis glanced up at last. Yeah, that could be kind of cool, he said, which, for a teenager, is basically the equivalent of throwing a parade. By noon, I'd cashed in a favor to get Friday off work, informed the school the kids would be out, and grabbed 3 tickets to Boston. I couldn't stop picturing Rebecca's face. Surprised, emotional, happy. It had been ages since I'd done something like this for her. I tried to call her that morning, but the call went to voicemail. Not surprising, considering her intense work schedule. I sent a message. Missing you. The kids keep asking when you'll be home. Love you. No reply. Unusual, but not alarming. That night, as I packed, I called again. Still no answer. A tiny pang of worry crept in, but I brushed it off. Boston was buzzing with a major business event, so she was likely out mingling, hustling, being the force she always was. Rebecca thrived in those settings. When I tucked Sophie in, she squeezed her favorite stuffed bunny and whispered, "Do you think Mommy will cry when she sees us?" "Maybe," I said, kissing her cheek. "It'll be the best surprise ever." I couldn't have been more wrong. The surprise that awaited us in Boston wasn't ours. It belonged to someone else. And it would break everything. The flight was short, but dragged on emotionally. Curtis zoned out with his music. Sophie talked non-stop about all the stories she planned to tell Mom, and I sat between them, increasingly uneasy. I called Becca 3 more times before we boarded. Still voicemail. I sent another message. "Hope everything's going great. Miss you." It showed delivered, but silence followed. Curtis pulled off one headphone. "Dad, why do you keep checking your phone?" "Just confirming our car rental," I lied, trying to sound casual. But something felt off, way off. After almost 20 years together, Becca and I had hit rough patches, sure. But she never went totally silent. Especially not with the kids. When we arrived at Logan, I called once more. This time, the phone rang. No answer, but at least it rang. That felt like progress. Getting the rental car was a mess. Reservation issues, long wait, Sophie needing the restroom. By the time we were driving through Boston, it was past 8. The streets buzzed with Thursday nightlife. "I'm starving," Sophie moaned from the back seat. "Same," Curtis added. "Can we eat before we find Mom?" "Let's see if she wants to come with us," I said, gripping the wheel. "We're almost there." As we got closer to the Marriott, my gut twisted tighter. I called her again. This time it rang, but still no pickup. The hotel's automatic doors opened into a polished lobby with soft lighting and glossy floors. Curtis and Sophie looked around, clearly impressed. Becca always stayed somewhere upscale on company money. "Wait here," I told them, gesturing to a cushy lounge area. "I'll check us in and find out Mom's room." Sophie bounced with excitement. "Can we surprise her right now?" I smiled, though it felt forced. "That's the plan, sweetheart." Walking to the front desk, I had no idea I was stepping into the moment everything would crack wide open. "Good evening, sir. How can I assist you?" said the young receptionist with a practiced smile. I cleared my throat. "I'm checking in, also trying to reach my wife, Rebecca Anderson. She should be staying here." Her fingers flew across the keyboard. Let me take a look." A few seconds passed. "Yes, Mrs. Anderson is staying here. Would you like me to call her room?" "Yes, please," I said, feeling relief. At least she was there. She picked up the phone, waited, then gave me a polite frown. "I'm sorry, there's no answer." "Can you try again?" I asked, my stomach knotting tighter. She dialed once more, paused, then hung up. Still no response. "Would you like to leave a message?" "That's all right," I said, handing over my credit card. "We'll go ahead and check in. My wife knows we're in town, kind of. It's meant to be a surprise." A flicker of uncertainty crossed the front desk clerk's face. "Got it. Let me take care of that for you." She processed the reservation and passed me 2 room keys. "You're in 732. Mrs. Anderson is staying in 718. I blinked. "Wait, separate floors?" She shook her head. "No, same floor. Just a few doors apart." She hesitated, then added, "According to the system, Mrs. Anderson checked in with another guest." Everything froze for a second. "Another guest? What do you mean by that?" She looked uncomfortable. "It says 2 guests are registered in her room. I just assumed. I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't have mentioned it." I forced a laugh, though it sounded brittle. "No worries. Probably just a colleague. You know, splitting costs or something." But I knew that couldn't be true. Rebecca's company prided itself on giving consultants their own rooms. It was practically policy. I gathered our things and rejoined Curtis and Sophie, my thoughts swirling. Maybe a coworker, another woman, or I couldn't finish the thought. "Did you see Mom?" Sophie asked, bouncing with excitement. "Not yet, sweetie. Let's head to our room and freshen up first." The elevator ride was quiet except for Sophie humming softly. Curtis gave me a look. He knew something wasn't right, but chose not to say anything. Our room was nice. Clean, generic luxury. I set the bags down and inhaled deeply. "Can we go see Mom now?" Sophie asked, tugging at my sleeve. "Soon. Why don't you guys get washed up first?" It's been a long day. While they were distracted in the bathroom, I slipped out into the hallway and walked to room 718. My heart felt like it was trying to punch its way out of my chest. I raised my hand and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder, still nothing, though I heard muffled sounds from inside. Music, laughter. My stomach dropped. I pulled out my phone and typed, "I'm standing outside your hotel door. Open up." The sounds inside went silent. Then a low male voice. I closed my eyes. I already knew what was on the other side of that door. It creaked open. Rebecca stood there in a hotel robe, her hair tousled, cheeks flushed. Her face shifted from shock to panic to irritation. "Jason?" she whispered sharply, stepping out and pulling the door nearly shut behind her. I stared, unable to speak. Then I found my voice. "Surprise," I said in a flat tone. "The kids and I flew in to visit you." Her eyes widened. "The kids are here?" "They're in our room, just down the hall." I could hear the numbness in my own voice. "They've been looking forward to this all day." She ran a hand through her hair, glanced back at the door. "You should have called first." "Mike, this isn't how it should have happened." "I did, several times." I crossed my arms. "Who's in there with you?" She flinched. "It's not what it looks like." "Really?" Because it looks like you've got a guy in there." "Tell me I'm wrong." The door opened wider. A man stepped into view, fit, maybe early 40s, still buttoning his shirt. "Becca, everything all right out here?" he asked, concern in his voice. My vision tunneled. He used the name I'd called her for years, my name for her. "And you are?" I asked in a low, deadly calm voice. Rebecca tried to intervene. "Mike, don't. No. I want to hear it from him." I took a step closer. "Who are you? And why are you in my wife's room?" The man glanced between us, clearly confused. I'm Trevor from the Chicago branch." He held out his hand, then awkwardly pulled it back. "I didn't know she was married." His words hit like a sledgehammer. I turned to Rebecca. She looked embarrassed, but not nearly enough. "You told him you weren't married?" I asked, my voice barely audible. She closed her eyes. "Not here. Not in the hallway." Trevor, you should probably go. Yeah, Trevor, I said coldly. Might be a good idea. Trevor raised his hands in surrender. Look, man, I had no clue. She never mentioned a husband. Or kids. He grabbed his jacket and walked past us without another word. And then it was just us. The silence between us felt suffocating. 17 years, Rebecca, I finally said. 17 years. And this is what you're doing on a business trip? It's not how it seems, she said sharply, her shame turning to defensiveness. You don't get it. Then help me get it. Explain how your kids came all this way to surprise you and found you with someone else instead. She turned away. You should have warned me before coming. Those words, so casually cruel, broke something inside me. You're blaming me? For not warning you before I caught you cheating? Keep your voice down, she snapped, glancing toward the hallway. The kids are waiting, I said, stepping back. Sophie's been glowing all day thinking she'll see her mom. What do you want to tell her? For the first time, guilt flashed in her eyes. Let me change. I'll be there in 5 minutes. I started to leave, then stopped. How long has this been going on? She wouldn't look at me. It was a one-time thing. A mistake, but Trevor's words echoed in my mind. I didn't know she was married. That wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. As I walked back to the room to face our children, I knew everything had changed forever. The walk felt endless, like trudging through quicksand, each step heavier than the last. How was I supposed to explain this to my kids? What could I even say? I paused outside our door, inhaled deeply, and forced my face into something close to normal. The keycard beeped. I pushed open the door. Did you see Mom? Sophie jumped off the bed, TV forgotten. Curtis lifted his head from his phone, narrowing his eyes as he read my face. What happened? He asked instantly. Nothing ever got past that kid. She'll be here soon, I said, trying to sound normal. She wasn't expecting us. Sophie beamed. Was she excited? Did she cry when she saw you? She was surprised, I said carefully, sidestepping Curtis's penetrating stare. Anyway, how about we grab something to eat? You gotta be hungry after traveling. Already taken care of, Curtis said, eyes still locked on mine. We ordered burgers and fries, he added, and chocolate cake. Sophie giggled, bouncing in place. I nodded, forcing a grin. Awesome. A knock on the door cut through the moment. Sophie leapt up instantly. That's her! Before I could stop her, she flung the door wide open and launched herself into Rebecca's arms. My wife stood there looking completely pulled together, hair sleek, makeup fresh, dressed like she'd just come from a board meeting. You'd never guess she'd been in a hotel room with another man minutes earlier. Mommy! Sophie cried, wrapping her tightly. Hi, baby, Rebecca said, hugging her. I can't believe you're all here. Her eyes met mine across Sophie's back. She didn't speak, but the message was clear. Don't ruin this. For the kids. Curtis remained on the bed, unmoving. Hey, he said flatly, tone unreadable. Rebecca walked over and brushed a kiss across his head. Hey, kiddo, did you grow while I was gone? It's been a week, Mom, he replied with dry sarcasm. The silence that followed clung to the room until Sophie started rambling about our trip. Rebecca nodded at the right times, still sneaking glances at me. I refused to return them. Daddy said we're all having dinner together, Sophie exclaimed. The food's coming now. Rebecca's smile faltered. That sounds lovely, sweetheart, but I actually have a dinner meeting tonight. Big account. Can't miss it. I let out a laugh that turned into a cough. Sophie's face crumpled. But we came all the way here for you. I know, honey. I'm so happy you did. Tomorrow is ours, I promise. Anything you want to do, we'll do it. Then, turning to me, she said, Mike, can I talk to you outside for a second? Curtis rolled his eyes. Smooth. I stepped out with her, leaving the door cracked just in case. A client dinner? I said, the words sharp and cold. Is that how you're spinning it? Rebecca's polished facade wavered. Mike, I need space to think. Think about what? Damage control? You're doing great with the lies. She flinched. That's not fair. Fair? I hissed. You want fair? Sophie spent hours picking the right pillow to bring you. Curtis actually helped me with flights. Do you know how rare that is? They were counting the hours to see you? Her eyes shimmered. I know, I made a horrible mistake. Just don't tell them. Not tonight. You want me to keep this quiet? Pretend everything's fine so you can go out like nothing happened? It really is a business dinner, she whispered. Trevor won't be there. This deal means everything for the firm. I stared at her like she was a stranger. Your job. That's what you care about right now? No, I'm trying to clean this mess up. She exhaled, shaky. Just tonight. Let me get through this dinner and then tomorrow we'll deal with everything. There's nothing left to fix, I said, my voice low and final. You betrayed me. You lied to your kids. And I don't even know how long it's been going on. She reached out, but I stepped back. It wasn't a double life, just a terrible choice. But I couldn't stop hearing it. Trevor's voice. I didn't know she was married. Don't, I said, turning for the door. Go play executive. I'll stay with the kids. What are you going to say? She asked, eyes filled with fear. I don't know yet. My hand paused on the door handle. But I'm not the one who lies to them, Becky. Back inside, Sophie was back on the bed, excitement radiating. Is she coming to eat with us? I swallowed hard. Not tonight, sweetie. She has something she can't skip for work. Sophie's face fell. The sight cut deep, but we surprised her. I know, honey, I said, pulling her close. She loves seeing you. She just has to finish this job. But tomorrow, she's all yours. Curtis was watching me, face unreadable. Where's she going? She's got a dinner meeting, I said, every syllable sour in my mouth. Sure, he muttered, eyes dropping back to his phone. Whatever. Sophie, always quick to move on, perked up again. Can we see the harbor tonight? Emma told me there are lights and boats and everything. Pretending everything was okay felt impossible, but the hope in her eyes didn't leave me much of a choice. Yeah, I said finally. Let's eat, then go check it out. Awesome. She popped another fry into her mouth. This is still the best surprise, Daddy. Curtis glanced up from his phone, shooting me a look that said he wasn't buying my act. I gave him a slight shake of my head. Hang on, I'll fill you in later. He responded with a tiny nod. At 15, he was already standing more like a man than a kid, and in that moment, I appreciated his maturity more than ever. That evening, we strolled along the edge of the harbor. Sophie darted ahead, excitedly pointing at every passing boat like each one was the first she'd ever seen. Curtis fell in beside me. She's seeing someone else, right? He asked, his voice low but firm. His words landed like a punch. I almost tripped over my own feet. Curtis, I don't want a fake answer, he said calmly. I'm old enough. Just be straight with me. I studied him, tall, calm, composed, and felt the weight of fatherhood in a new way. Yeah, I said finally, I think she is. His question lingered like smoke between us. It felt wrong hearing it from my son, but also inevitable. What made you suspect? I asked, glancing ahead to where Sophie was running up to a giant yacht, arms out like she could hug it. Curtis shrugged, jamming his hands into his jacket pockets. You've been acting weird. She's been different for months. The looks between you two. When you came back earlier, you looked like you'd seen a ghost. Too observant, always has been. I don't want to lie to you, I said softly. But this stuff isn't easy to explain. I'd rather hear something hard than be left wondering what's happening to my family, he replied, without hesitation. The wind off the water felt like ice in my lungs as I exhaled. I walked in on her. With someone else. His jaw clenched. No shock on his face, just confirmation. Not surprised, he said. Since she started that consulting job, it's like she's been somewhere else, always texting, traveling, staying late. The nausea returned. Was I the only one who'd refused to see the truth? You picked up on that? He nodded. So did you. You just didn't want to admit it. His tone wasn't angry, just quietly resigned. Sophie shouted back to us, pointing at the largest boat we'd seen all night. Guys, this one has a helicopter on top. Coming, kiddo, I called, forcing some cheer into my voice. Curtis nudged a loose pebble with his shoe. So, now what? Are you and Mom splitting up? The word felt like shattered glass in my mouth. I don't know yet. I'm still trying to process everything. But no matter what happens between us, you and Sophie are what matters most. He scoffed, bitter. If she cared about us, she wouldn't have done this. It's more complicated than that, I said, though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. People make bad choices. Sometimes really bad ones. This isn't forgetting to pick up groceries, he said sharply. This was deliberate. We caught up to Sophie, who had her nose pressed against the railing, watching the yacht like it was a floating castle. It's bigger than our house, she shouted gleefully. I lifted her onto my shoulders to give her a better view, silently grateful for her innocence. Cool, huh? While she chattered about the boat, Curtis lingered off to the side, his expression unreadable. I could see him sorting through it all, choosing how to carry it. When you do tell Sophie, he said quietly, don't do it yet. She still thinks Mom is perfect. I won't say anything for now, I promised, but we'll have to deal with it eventually. He nodded, then, to my surprise, leaned gently into my side, a gesture I hadn't felt from him in years. We'll be all right, he said. You, me, and Soph. His words nearly broke me, but they also gave me something I hadn't felt all day, hope. Yeah, I whispered, wrapping an arm around his shoulder. We'll make it. By the time we returned to the hotel, Sophie was practically asleep in my arms. Curtis walked beside us in silence, the weight of what we'd discussed hanging thick in the air. I'm sleepy, Sophie mumbled as we stepped into the elevator. I know, honey. Bedtime's close, I said, adjusting her position on my shoulder. I hit the button for our floor, dreading what might be waiting on the other side of the doors. When they opened, I felt my heart drop. Rebecca was standing outside our room, arms crossed tightly, tapping her foot. Her face shifted the second she saw us, from irritation to performative concern. Where were you? I've been trying to reach you for hours, she snapped. We went down to the harbor, I said evenly, adjusting Sophie. Left my phone behind. Curtis walked past her without so much as a glance, swiping the keycard and entering the room. Rebecca watched him, confused. Curtis, what's going on? He said nothing, just shut the door behind him. Rebecca turned back to me, her voice sharp. What did you tell him? He asked. I replied simply. So I told him the truth. Her face lost color. You had no right. That should have been a decision we made together. I gestured toward Sophie. Keep your voice down. And you gave up that say when you broke our family. She stepped back like I'd hit her. Mike, please, we need to talk calmly. How was your meeting? I asked, letting the sarcasm drip. We closed the deal, she said stiffly. It was a productive night. Glad to hear it, I said with zero warmth. You've never been better at your job. That's not fair. None of this is fair, Becca. Our son knows what you did. Our daughter will figure it out soon. This isn't a situation where fairness applies. Sophie stirred, lifting her head sleepily. Why are you guys mad? Rebecca's eyes filled instantly. We're not mad, baby. Just talking about boring adult stuff. It sounded like yelling, Sophie mumbled. I rubbed her back gently. Don't worry, sweetheart. Let's get you tucked in. I walked past Rebecca to go into the room, but she grabbed my arm. Mike, we need to talk. Just us. Not now, I said firmly, shaking free. I need to take care of our daughter. Curtis sat perched on the edge of the bed, headphones on, eyes locked on a blank stretch of wall. He didn't even glance up as his mother stepped into the room behind me. I helped Sophie into her pajamas, her energy drained, eyelids already heavy. Sleep tight, princess. Sweet dreams. Night, Daddy. Night, Mommy, she murmured, already fading. Rebecca hovered awkwardly at the foot of the bed, unsure where she fit anymore. Good night, sweetheart, she whispered, brushing a kiss across Sophie's forehead. Once Sophie drifted off, Rebecca motioned toward the hallway. Can we talk? In my room? I turned to Curtis, who hadn't moved. His back was straight, his focus still on the wall. You okay? I asked softly. He slid off one side of his headphones. I'm fine. Go figure it out. His tone was flat, numb. Rebecca winced, but said nothing. I followed her out into the corridor, retracing steps that led straight back to the very room where I'd walked in on the truth hours earlier. She unlocked the door, and we stepped into a space that looked clean, tidy, but to me, everything still reeked of betrayal. Curtis won't even look at me, she said, her voice brittle. He's angry, I said quietly. We all are. Rebecca sank onto the edge of the bed, the first sign of her calm unraveling. I don't know what I was thinking, Mike. It was a horrible lapse in judgment. No, I said, remaining near the door. You weren't thinking about us. At all. The room no longer felt like hers. It felt hollow, used, I didn't dare sit on the bed where she'd destroyed what we'd built. I don't even know where to begin, she admitted, wringing her hands. Try honesty, I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel the storm underneath. How long has this been going on? She paused. Too long. It was just the one time, she said. A mistake. Then why didn't Trevor know you were married? I asked. You don't forget to mention your husband the first time you sleep with someone. Her shoulders dropped. We'd been talking for a while. It started in Chicago. We flirted, texted. Things escalated. So, Boston wasn't your first time? No, she whispered. It wasn't. Even though I expected it, the confirmation punched through me. I leaned against the wall for balance. How many times? How many men? It's only been Trevor. It happened 3 times. That's it. She wiped away a tear. I know that doesn't fix anything. No, it doesn't, I said, shaking my head. 17 years together, 3 kids. You gambled it all. What, for some spark? For someone to make you feel special? That's not it, she insisted. We drifted apart, Mike. You were always busy. With work. With the kids. I felt invisible. I needed to feel like a woman again, not just a wife and mom. My anger surged. Don't you dare pin this on me. If you were unhappy, you should have said something. We could have worked through it. You chose this. I know, she said, voice cracking. I know I did. And I regret it more than I can explain. You regret doing it or just getting caught? She flinched. That's not fair. None of this is fair, I snapped. You broke our family. Curtis wants nothing to do with you. And Sophie? She'll find out eventually. You destroyed everything for some cheap affair with a guy from your office. We sat in silence, the weight of 2 decades pressing down between us. All the memories, now tainted. What do we do now? She finally asked. I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt like I was staring at someone I no longer recognized. I'm taking the kids home tomorrow. First flight. She stood quickly. Mike, please, let's try counseling. A clean slate. Something. I don't know if I can ever believe anything you say again, I said. And if there's no trust, there's nothing left to fix. Her face crumpled. We have a life together. A family. We've built so much. And you threw it all away, I said, moving toward the door. I'm going back to our children. What are you going to tell Sophie? I paused with my hand on the handle. I don't know. But I won't lie to her. The plane ride home was nearly silent. Sophie was asleep before we left the runway, wiped out from the roller coaster that had been our failed trip. Curtis sat by the window, headphones back on, staring at the sky. Every so often, he'd glance at me with something like sympathy, or maybe it was pride. I hadn't slept at all. After leaving Rebecca's room, I'd returned to find Curtis awake, waiting. We're heading home in the morning, I'd told him. He nodded, visibly relieved. Good. Rebecca showed up at the airport to say goodbye. Her face was blotchy from crying. Sophie hugged her tightly, confused by our sudden exit. Why isn't Mommy coming with us? She asked again and again. She has work to finish, I told her, each word heavy with bitterness. She'll come home soon. Curtis gave his mom a stiff side hug, then walked straight onto the plane without a word. As we began descending toward home, my thoughts shifted to the road ahead. What to say to Sophie, how to manage the coming storm, how to explain this to family. Dad? Curtis's voice pulled me back. Yeah, bud? Are you okay? The sincerity in his voice made my throat tighten. I will be, I said. We all will. He gave a slow nod like he was absorbing every word. What's going to happen next? Is Mom coming back? I exhaled. She'll be home. But things won't go back to how they were. Your mom and I have some big decisions to make. You mean you might get divorced? Maybe, I said honestly. I don't know yet, but I do know this. Your mom and I both love you and Sophie more than anything. That doesn't change. He was quiet for a beat. Then he said, just so you know, I think you're doing the right thing. We deserve better than lies. What he said hit me harder than I expected. Mature words from someone so young, both painful and powerful. He never should have had to carry any of this, but the strength he showed made me prouder than ever. When our flight touched down, Sophie stirred almost instantly, rubbing her eyes and asking when she'd see her mom. That question, innocent as it was, drove the truth in deeper. Our family wasn't whole anymore. 3 weeks later, Rebecca and I sat facing each other at the kitchen table, the divorce paperwork laid out between us. She'd since moved into a rental downtown. Curtis was still distant, speaking to her only when necessary. Sophie had started to piece it together, realizing in her own 10-year-old way that life would never look the same. "I never imagined it would come to this," Rebecca said softly, pen in hand, but not moving. "Neither did I replied. "But here we are. Will you ever be able to forgive me?" I looked at her. Those eyes that used to feel like home now felt foreign. I thought for a moment. Maybe one day, for the kids, but some things leave permanent scars. She gave a quiet nod. As she left, I felt something I hadn't in weeks, a flicker of release. The hurt still lived in me, but so did hope. After everything, a new chapter waited for me and my kids. We'd be all right, not the same, but all right.